Would your friends and family describe you as a persuasive person? What do you think it takes to actually improve your persuasion skills? And is it even possible? Well, the psychology of persuasion is fascinating because there's so much that goes into being a persuasive person. So you could think of the clothes that you wear. You could think of the way your hair is styled, the makeup you have on, the facial hair that you have, the way you smell, you walk, the things you say to people, how you say those specific things. There's so many factors that come into play when you think of the idea of persuasion. So there's an immense layer of psychology here on how psychologically safe do I feel with someone to even be persuaded in the first place. There's tons of episodes I could make on all of this when it comes to negotiation, psychological safety, all of that good stuff. But today I want to focus on one specific technique that I think not a lot of people have heard about or would really be familiar with. It's something extremely subtle and it's extremely powerful for persuasion. So these researchers years ago went to this preschool and they're working with young children. They go into these classrooms and they talk to half the kids and they say, "Hey, could you help clean up?" There was papers everywhere, there's crayons on the floor, markers, just this huge mess in the room. The other half of the kids were asked, "Hey, would you be a helper and clean up the room?" And the difference was pretty shocking. There was a 50% increase in the likelihood of children participating in cleaning from the second question to the first question. So what's so interesting about this? Why did this help so much with the results of this persuasion study? Well, what was interesting is that if you look at the wording and how it was executed, the first question talks about the task specifically. Could you help clean up? I want you to execute this specific task to make the room clean. The second question pokes much more into the identity of the person. Would you be a helper and clean up the room? Could you be a person that is willing to help clean up? When you think about the different angles to word this and talk about it, it's fascinating because it touches on so much more than just this blank response of there's an action or a task and I'm supposed to execute it. Now it's about me. It's about me being a helper, me actually contributing and doing something good. There was a 50% increase in participation from shifting the way that the question was asked. And what was interesting, there was another poll for voters that did a very similar thing where they were asked, "Hey, could you come in and vote?" Something to that effect. Versus, "Hey, you could be a voter. You could contribute positively to your community." There was a different way that the question was worded, and that improved voting participation by 15%. So when you look at these questions and you think, okay, we're asking them to do the same thing. We're asking the children to clean up the room. We're asking people to come in and vote. Why is there such a big difference, whether it's 50% from the children or 15% from the voters? Just by tapping into the identity aspect of it, they saw a huge increase in the likelihood of participation. So what does that mean for you and I? What does that mean for day to day? Well, instead of persuading someone based on the task, try to persuade someone based on the identity wrapped around the task. So instead of, "Hey, could you clean that up?" "Hey, would you be a helper and help clean up?" Instead of being a hardworking person, would you be a hard worker and blank? There's so many ways to phrase this and think about it. And I know it sounds kind of awkward and prescribed and a bit unnatural, but the more you practice it and the more you think about it, the more you can deliver it in a natural way, because that's also key. Is it has to be natural. It has to be charismatic. It has to be real and raw. It can't be this forced, super scripted type of thing. But it's so interesting to see the learnings here of what can be done to actually make someone more persuasive. So I hope this technique was helpful for you. There's a bunch of videos online talking about persuasion and negotiation, tons of articles and great psychological research out there as well. This was one episode referencing all sorts of interesting things. I have many, many more to bring on and a lot more stuff I want to talk about around this. But here's your little bite-sized trick for today. So I hope that was helpful for you. Definitely understand that this doesn't guarantee anything. Nothing is guaranteed. It could have a massive failure rate for you. It could have a massive success rate in different situations. This study suggested that there was a big increase in group 1 to group 2 from the way that the question was asked. So you can't get upset and mad when you say, hey, I started talking about people's identities and I wasn't persuasive at all and nothing happened. This is a garbage technique. It doesn't work like that. You can improve the likelihood of your persuasive skills working on someone by rephrasing and rewording things like that. But it takes a lot of things also. Keep in mind your confidence, your execution, the way you look, the way you smell, the way you dress, the way you have a relationship with someone to begin with, the situation at hand. There are so many little things that combine in that person's head to make them more or less susceptible to being persuaded by you in the first place. So things to consider, and I did say trick earlier in the episode. It's not a trick, it's a technique. You're not trying to trick or manipulate someone into doing something. You're trying to help, support, and get buy-in, right? Ideally, we're using this for a force of good. We're trying to help people better themselves and the environments in which they inhabit. So think about everything we've talked about today. Really consider this and let me know in the comments, has anyone persuaded you before in a good or bad way? What do you think about your persuasive skills? And is there anything that you think would be an interesting add-on to what I've already mentioned today in this video? So thank you for hanging out. I appreciate it. As always, remember to take care of yourself, take care of those around you, and for all things psychology to help you think, feel, and perform better, stay tuned right here on Psychology of Living.